Sabah al-Khair, good morning dear listeners. You're listening to Radio 3CR on 855 AM and Palestine Remembered with Robert Martin, Nasser Mashni and Yusuf Ahmed al-Rimawi.
Palestine Remembered is Australia's only English language radio program that is totally dedicated to Palestine. We'd like to welcome those listening on 855 and those that will join us on podcast at 3cr.org.au.
Thanks for joining us. Stay with us and enjoy the episode.
Bringing you the news and views and the untold side of the Palestinian struggle for freedom from a Palestinian perspective. Good morning, listeners, and welcome to another episode of Palestine Remembered. Today we've got the distinct honour of being joined by a fantastic supporter of Palestine, Mick, on Mick's Walk to Palestine. He's a trade unionist, internationalist, and campaigner for justice for Palestinians and the refugees. And he joins us today from somewhere in Macedonia. Good morning, Mick. How are you?
Hello there, Nasser. Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. Yeah, it's great to be on your program. I'm actually in the city of Bitola in the Republic of North Macedonia.
Wow. Now, our listeners don't know, but I do know about Mick's Walk to Palestine. We know where you are now, but that's not where you're actually from, Mick. Where are you from?
No, it's not. I mean, I live in the UK. I live in Newcastle upon Tyne, and that's my home, my hometown. I've been active in campaigning for Palestine in the UK for many years.
What brought you to Palestine?
I think there's a number of things. I mean, I think it was very much embedded in my political awakening, if you like, when I was probably in my late teens. I remember being as part of being a socialist, if you like, being an internationalist, and I became aware of the great injustice being perpetrated against the Palestinians at quite a young age. It was part of my political awareness, really. And I think the sense that Britain has a particular responsibility for what has happened to the Palestinians, going back to when we had the mandate in Palestine, and then there's the infamous Balfour Declaration of 1917, which set the grounds, if you like, for the dispossession and the displacement of Palestinians, which has happened ever since. So the combination of part and parcel of becoming an internationalist, becoming aware of this issue, aware of Britain's particular responsibility in it, and just the sense that it's just such a profound injustice that's being perpetrated against the Palestinians.
Brilliant, Mick. Thank you so much for your support, and obviously decades long. Mick, you're walking to Palestine, and the basis of which is to raise awareness about the injustice and apartheid that is occurring for the Palestinians. Where did you come up with the idea?
Well, it came, I suppose, the germ of the idea came from reading a book called Walking to Jerusalem, which came out in 2018. And it chronicles, it was written by a guy called Justin Butcher. And it chronicles the walk by a group of people from a progressive Christian organization called the Amos Trust in 2017, who were Palestine activists. And as part of the commemoration of the infamous Balfour Declaration, the 100th anniversary, they walked from Canterbury in the UK all the way through to Jerusalem. So I read this book and I found it very inspiring. And I thought the germ of the idea came from that. But it wasn't until I knew I was going to be retiring from work at the end of last year that I realized that now I've got the opportunity to do it. So I began to firm up the idea. And it became a sense of like another strand of my activism, if you like. So something a bit different, something which I thought had the opportunity to reach out to people and speak to people beyond the converted, if you like. So the idea came from that, from reading that book, and it developed from there.
So I know some of the people from the Amos Trust. I didn't know that they actually did that walk. That's no small undertaking. They arrange walks inside Palestine for people to do heritage walks.
They do, yes, they do. So house building projects for people who've had the Palestinians who've had their homes demolished by the Israeli state. So they do a lot of very, very progressive work.
Mick, take me through the logistics. How long ago did you leave?
I set off from Calais in northern France on the 16th of April. So that's about 3.5 months ago now. The total mileage of the walk, which from Calais to Istanbul, is just over 2,000 miles, about 2,100 miles. So it involves crossing 8 countries: France, Switzerland, Italy, and then getting a ferry across the Adriatic to Durrës in Albania, walking through Albania. And now I'm in North Macedonia. After North Macedonia, it'd be Greece, and then through Turkey to Istanbul. Now, because of the geopolitics of the area, it's not possible to walk into the land crossing into Palestine through the West Bank. Or you have to go through Jordan, and it's not possible to walk into Jordan from Turkey, because you'd either have to go through Syria or Iraq, which just isn't possible. So we'll be flying from Istanbul to Amman in Jordan, and then walk the last little bit across to the Allenby Bridge, crossing into Palestine. So it's 6 months, Renault, started 16th of April. Hopefully I'll reach Istanbul by beginning of first part of October, and then I'll cross to the West Bank soon after that. So 6 months and about 2,100 miles.
2,100 miles.
Yeah, it's about 3,500 kilometers. Yeah.
Yeah. How many miles a day do you walk?
Usually it probably averages out about 15 miles a day, so about between 25 and 30 kilometers. I mean, I have done up to 40 kilometers, but that's taking a bit too far, and that's stretching it a bit much. And also at the moment, since walking through Albania and Macedonia and probably into Greece, it's very hilly countryside. So realistically, 25 kilometers a day, which, as I say, is about 15 miles, is a sensible amount.
Now, Mick, support, how do you do it? I mean, you're not carrying 6 months worth of food with you.
No, but I'm backpacking. So that means I'm carrying my camping equipment with me. I've got a lightweight tent and sleeping bag, and fully self-contained. The reason I'm doing it backpacking is because I'm on a very tight budget. Basically, I made a conscious decision not to seek any sponsorship or any funding for this in any way at all, but to fund the whole project out of my own resources, basically my local government pension. So because of that, I've needed to camp where I can, and then staying in cheap hotels, hostels. And for the first part of the walk through France, Switzerland, and Italy, I was following an old pilgrimage route called the Via Francigena. And because I was classed as a pilgrim, I could have access to some cheap accommodation in religious houses and things. So I'm carrying everything I need in my backpack, camping when I can, but especially with being in very hot weather recently, that hasn't been feasible. So sleeping in cheap hotels, hostels, things like that in the evening.
You're walking between two towns, and you walk 25, 30 kilometers, 20 miles.
Yes.
Often there won't be hotels. They don't sit every 20 kilometers on the road, or 30 kilometers. Well, so you must be doing a lot of
That's right. I mean, it wasn't so much of a problem in France, Switzerland, and Italy. You could normally plan in advance, book into places, or there was campsites, that sort of thing. And there's also it was actually easier to wild camp in parts of France and in Italy than it has been in the Balkans. But since crossing over to Albania, the infrastructure is far less developed. So it's always a bit of you never quite. Very often when I start out at the beginning of the day, I'm never quite sure what type of accommodation, or even if there is going to be accommodation at the end of it. So sometimes I might turn up at a town after I've walked, say, 15 miles, and then there isn't anything. I might have to walk on for another few miles to find some lodging or somewhere to camp. So it's always a bit of a gamble when you start off on the day as to exactly where you're going to be staying at the end of the day.
I've got to tell you, you're living the real Palestinian experience there. The uncertainty, the insecurity of lodging. You're almost a Gazan. Now, Mick, have you had some support along the way? I mean, food, shelter from supporters of the cause and of you?
Yeah, I mean, occasionally. I mean, for example, in Italy, I was invited by activists to speak at a couple of events, and they put me up for the evening. I've been met with great kindness by people. Just recently in Albania, about just over probably about 10 days ago, I was walking in the countryside on my way to Elbasan, and I was really wilting in the heat because it was during the heat wave, and I'd walked about 30 kilometers, and I was really struggling. And this car pulled up, and it turned out to be a family who were from Albania but had been settled in the UK for many years and were back on holiday. And they were so kind. They not only took me into their house for drinks, but they drove me to the town at the end of my destination and sponsored me in an air-conditioned hotel for a couple of nights. So it's been some really nice things like that have happened with the kindness of strangers, as well as being put up at where I've spoken at events. So yeah, there's always been an element, as you say, of not quite knowing where I'm going to be staying at the end of the day. And I think maybe if I just make reference to the fact that one of the other strands of what I'm doing is to highlight the situation of refugees, people who are often doing the walk that I've done, but coming from the other direction, have ended up at Calais rather than starting out from Calais. And I'm trying to highlight where I can the impact of people who've been forcibly displaced from their homes and how we should be much more welcoming. So I think my experience is going to be just a tiny little taste of what their experience has been like as well.
I mean, it really is amazing, Mick. I'm just trying to fathom. We've got a wonderful Australian, John Salisbury, is a dear friend of the show, and he has walked to Canberra and he's walked to Sydney on a couple of, I call them pilgrimages,
right,
to raise awareness for Palestine and particularly around
excellent.
The Labor Party recognising Palestine as a country, as a state. And those walks have been, significant, sort of 500 to 700 kilometres. But he's got a brilliant wife who's accompanied him, and she's sort of, her and the dog have sort of driven ahead, and they mark where he got to during the day, and then she picks him up, drives him forward, 80 miles or whatever to the hotel, and then drives him back in the morning, and then he starts off again. So you've got no support crew at all.
No, not at all. I mean, I'm completely by myself. I've got people back in the UK, a couple of good friends who are helping me with social media, who put stuff up on my Facebook page and on Instagram and TikTok. So Have got that backup support. And I do derive a lot of support from all of the interaction that there is with my certainly with my Facebook page, Mick's Walk to Palestine. It is really heartening and strengthening to get to see all of the supportive comments that I get there. But in terms of day-to-day stuff, no, I'm completely by myself.
It thoroughly is amazing. Now, they can't possibly do something that supports Palestine and not be tarred with a brush of anti-Semitism. Have you had any trouble?
Yes. No, I haven't actually. And it's interesting. I mean, I know exactly what you mean. There's been a deliberate attempt, certainly in the UK, and I think a lot of other countries as well, to conflate criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism. And there's been the imposition of the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, certainly in the UK and across Europe, which very explicitly makes reference to referring to Israel as an apartheid state as being anti-Semitic. I haven't actually encountered a great pushback against what I've been doing. Sometimes you get a few trolls on making comments on the Facebook page, but very, very few actually. And the media, when I have had I've had significant media interest from Al Jazeera, from the media back in my home region in the northeast, and some other outlets as well. And it's interesting. They certainly, for example, the local media back in Newcastle, northeast of England, they did a very positive story, which is very pro-Palestinian. And I was expecting there to be a lot of pushback against that, but surprisingly, there wasn't. So no, personally, I haven't been targeted in that way with accusations of anti-Semitism. That's not to say that it won't happen, but as yet that hasn't been a problem for me.
Now, Mick, you're an old school Irish activist. you've been around long enough to have been an internationalist and a socialist, and come to Palestine early. I haven't actually spoken to anyone from the UK with respect to the hatchet job done on Jeremy Corbyn.
Yes, yeah.
What an absolute disaster.
Oh, it really was. It really was. I mean, I've been on all sorts of levels. I mean, I've been an active member of the Labour Party ever since I was old enough to join the Labour Party in my teens. I've been a Labour Party official, an unpaid official in terms of branch secretary, and I was also a councillor, an elected councillor in my home city of Newcastle as well for the Labour Party. When Jeremy Corbyn was elected leader back in 2015, myself and a lot of other people who were from the socialist wing of the party, if you like, which is what the party's meant to be about, were delighted by this. But then we saw such a huge pushback against that, and how anti-Semitism was really weaponized against him as a means of trying to undermine his leadership. And it was actually shocking how that was done, with the collusion of elements of the British media, elements within his own party, unfortunately, party bureaucracy, some elements of the trade union movement. But it was absolutely shocking. And when he and other people tried to sort of say, look, this is the whole issue about anti-Semitism in the party has been exaggerated and has been weaponized. That in itself was seen as treated as an anti-Semitic statement. So it has been shocking. It's been really shocking, and we've lost a great socialist person, a man of integrity, got a lifelong commitment to anti-racism, to fascism, to anti-fighting fascism. He's got great support from the Jewish community, including in his own constituency. And how he's been treated and vilified is absolutely disgraceful.
Absolutely disgraceful. And for a moment, there was a glimmer of hope that socialism could push back against this monster that is, consuming us all over the world. Imperialist, capitalistic.
Exactly. That's right. I mean, it was very, and it was a progressive politics that he was espousing, and it wasn't anything that was. I mean, really, what he was talking, the politics and the policies which were represented by Jeremy Corbyn, well, what should be called Labour Party policies, and which were the policies advocated and followed by the party going back, from the Second World War, the creation of the welfare state, and right up until the party veered towards adopting a neoliberal approach in the 90s. So yeah, it was a great moment, wasn't it? We thought that this is a real chance, and we came so close in the elections in 2017. That's right.
We came so close with the whole party, well, the machinations behind the party working against him.
Yes.
I mean, if they'd thrown their energy at him, I mean, and this is, something I talk about with people when I talk about socialism. During COVID for 2 years, depending on where you were, and we were in Melbourne in Australia, the most lockdown city in the world. We spent close to 2 years in and out of lockdown.
Yeah.
The banks weren't allowed to take your house off you. Landlords weren't allowed to kick you out. Utilities weren't allowed to turn the power off.
Yeah.
You were given a living wage to stay at home. I mean, it was socialism, and the world didn't explode.
And it worked.
Yeah, there was because there was no tourism. What they did was they housed the homeless in the hotels. It worked. Now, don't get me wrong.
It's the same in the UK. Yeah, that's right. When there's a political will, that's a really good example that you've raised there about the issue of homelessness. It was the same in the UK. They had a policy of everyone in once the lockdown was declared, and within a matter of weeks, the resources of the state and local authorities were mobilised to ensure everybody was housed, given at least temporary accommodation. It shows whether there's a political will, these problems, which are described as intractable and going to take years and years and years to deal with, can be resolved.
Can be resolved just if there's the political will, and certainly Jeremy had that in spades, and he had a plan and a manifesto.
He did indeed.
And we watch on from afar and hear about the stories of what's happening to the NHS. We hear the stories about the housing crisis and the rental crisis, and certainly in Australia we're suffering from that to a degree as well.
Yeah.
This neoconservatism, And listeners, we're talking to Mick from Mick's Walk to Palestine, and we're straight off the topic of Palestine. But these things are so very connected.
They are indeed. Yeah, they are.
Palestine stands as the nexus between imperialism, between Western hegemony, between capitalism, as a buttress. With the end of the apartheid fascist state of Israel and the return of Palestine to the Palestinians, whether they be Muslim, Christian, or Jewish, that tomorrow that we dream and work towards is actually the first domino in the end of Western hegemony and imperialism. And
no, I agree, and I think that you see the issue of the issue of what's happened to the Palestinian people very much epitomizes the wider scale geopolitical processes which are operating and which are controlling our world and are there and which are keeping the situation, this huge injustice continuing. And shamefully, certainly the UK government, most European governments, American government, not only collude with Israel, but actively empower it and enable it to carry out its oppression through supplying its arms, protecting its impunity from any active scrutiny or repercussions for its actions as well.
It is absolutely most of our listeners, Mick, pay attention to world news. And it would not be lost on any Australian listener. The United Kingdom's recent language around refugees, about them being illegal.
Yes, that's shameful.
And that's another part of your work, is actually raising awareness around refugees.
It is indeed. And obviously the refugee issue and the Palestinian issue are very closely interrelated, given the fact that the majority of Palestinians are living as refugees. And they are the largest single refugee group in the world, and they've been experiencing forced displacement going back to the Nakba in 1948. So the two issues are very much interrelated. But yes, I mean the language and the policies which have been adopted by the UK government, some of which they learned from the Australian government in terms of outsourcing, offshoring the whole asylum process. It's absolutely disgraceful. And this whole emphasis on
I saw a video of Rishi Sunak, almost verbatim the language that our prime ministers of late have been speaking. You will not be resettled here. If you try and come illegally, we will send you back.
Yeah.
Famously, our conservative, our Margaret Thatcher, John Winston Howard said, we'll decide who comes and in the manner in which they'll come. Demonizing and belittling, quote unquote, boat people.
It is. It's absolutely shocking, isn't it? That's right. And it's in complete denial of responsibilities under international law, the Refugee Convention.
Our responsibilities as humans.
Well, exactly. Yes, that's right. So, yes, exactly.
Just as humans. I mean, international law is an important thing, but we've seen countries flout that. Yeah. But just as human beings, we have responsibilities.
We do.
If Mick's house is on fire, my job is to go and try and save him.
No, exactly.
And, he lives with me until we can fix his house. And, if I've got one loaf of bread and Mick's got none, we've both got half a loaf of bread. That's what humanity is.
I fully agree. Yeah, definitely.
But if you're Rishi Sunak or John Winston Howard, I think they've only got one piece of bread and there's nothing left for us.
Yeah. But yeah, and it's escalated again. The one of the saddest sort of things, if you like, from my background as a Labour Party activist, is how the Labour Party is now officially sort of colluding with that and isn't challenging either on grounds of morality or legality what the Conservatives are doing, but are going along with it and playing this game of who can be the toughest on immigration. So it's the whole issue of asylum. So it's really shocking. You say the whole issue of humanity has been taken out of it.
That played out exactly the same here. The Conservatives were saying, the Labor Party's weak on refugees. They're going to allow floods of them to come, and there'll be drownings, and it'll be their fault because they're soft on these illegals, and we need to send a clear message. And look, the reality in where the world has come, post Boris Johnson, Donald Trump, Viktor Orban, Bolsonaro in Brazil, Modi in India, these individualistic, chauvinistic, racist,
Populist.
this is my populist, this is mine, my country and my people alone. And it resonates, that, you know what, Steve, your job was taken by that refugee. And, I saw this great meme many years ago and it said, if Abdul came from Afghanistan, sold his wife's jewelry and dowry to get a ticket to get to Iran and then onto a boat to somehow got to Indonesia and then spent a couple of years in detention, then somehow got a temporary protection visa and then got a job with no language and no income and no support network. And if he took your job, Steve, maybe you're shit. And the problem isn't that he took your job, but rather that the system that sits in place today has made, what you do as a vocation not pay enough to live.
Yeah, no, exactly. I know. I mean, I think as well as the issues are embedded in, the inequalities and of the world in which we live, and how elites maintain that position of power by scapegoating. So, refugees, asylum seekers are scapegoated just in exactly the way that you said, that they're taking your jobs, they're taking your healthcare provision, they're taking your kids' places at schools. That's the issue, and not the underlying inequality and the hollowing out of the whole public sector as a result of austerity over the past 15 years. It's a cynical scapegoating process as well.
Mick, I wonder, we watched on from Australia from afar at the Leave campaign of the EU. It's been some time now. What's the feeling there now? I
mean, I think there's a resignation that it can't be undone. People who,
but the economic benefits and all the stuff that was supposed to flow through.
Nothing.
Farage. Nothing's happened, has it?
Oh no, it was all built on lies. This whole idea, for example, that the money that was supposedly going to Europe we wouldn't have to pay that, and it'd be going and pumped into the NHS and put the other areas of the public sector. It was a complete lie and a complete misrepresentation of how the funding arrangements worked. Regions such as mine in the northeast of England, we've particularly suffered because we had a very strong trading base with Europe for our manufacturing industries in the area, and they've suffered as a result of that. So and you see it across the very important sectors such as social care, how dependent they were upon people people coming in from other parts of Europe to work in the social care system. So no, it's been that has not been any of the claimed economic benefits from it at all. It was just based on this horrible chauvinism and misdirected sense that somehow Europe was responsible for a lot of internal problems that we had. Again, it was a misdirection. It was scapegoating.
Now, Mick, very quickly, about a minute left. How can people support you? We'll put a link to your Facebook page on the podcast. And
that would be excellent.
So people go to Facebook and then just look up Mick's Walk to Palestine, MICK''S, Mick's Walk to Palestine. They can follow you there. And the same on Instagram and TikTok?
Mick's Walk to Palestine, and that would come up. Yes, a couple of the people back in the UK put some stuff on Instagram and TikTok with me. I'm not particularly au fait with that, but I write all of the posts and provide the photographs for the Facebook page. So yeah, people can look at that. I usually do about 2 or 3 posts a week, and it's not just a travel log. I try to use it as an awareness raising tool about the issue, what's happened to the Palestinians, but also refugees as well. And there's links into different organisations such as Medical Aid for Palestinians. So I said earlier that I'm not doing this as a fundraiser, and I'm not. But if people want to make donations, it'd be great if they make a donation directly to either Medical Aid for Palestinians or to Care for Calais.
Yeah, beautiful. Fantastic. Thanks so very much for joining us, mate.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thanks very much, Nessa. It's great that you're taking the interest to do this. So thanks. And any way I can help, that's great. Thank you.
Mate, I look forward to you getting into Palestine, posting the fact that you got in there, and if you get a chance, perhaps we can have a quick call whilst you're in Palestine.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be delighted to do that. Yeah, that'd be great.
Fantastic, listeners. That was Mick from Mick's Walk to Palestine. We'll put a link to his Facebook page, Instagram, and TikTok in the podcast. You can go there and get it. Thanks for listening. Tell your friends, share the podcast, and remember, there's never been a better time for a free Palestine.